Luke. Seeing that many have taken in hand to set forth in order a narrative of those things that have been fully assured among us, even as they delivered them to us, that from the beginning were eyewitnesses and servants of the word, Logos, it seemed good to me also, having had perfect understanding of all things from the very first, to write to you in order, most excellent Theophilus, so that you might know the certainty of those things which you have been informed of. There was in the days of Herod, the king of Judea, a priest named Zacharias, of the course of Abia, and his woman was of the daughters of Aaron, and her name was Elizabeth. And they were both righteous before Elohim, walking in all the commandments and ordinances of the Lord free from fault. And they had no children, because Elizabeth was barren, and they both were now well stricken in years. And it came to pass, that while he executed the priest's office before Elohim in the order of his course, according to the custom of the priest's office, his lot was to burn incense when he went into the temple of the Lord. And the whole assembly of the people were praying outside at the time of incense. And there appeared to him an angel of the Lord standing on the right side of the altar of incense. And when Zacharias saw him, he was troubled, and terror rushed over him. But the angel said to him, Fear not, Zacharias, for your prayer is heard, and your woman Elizabeth will gender you a son, and you will call his name John. And you will have joy and gladness, and many will rejoice at his birth. Because he will be great in the sight of the Lord, and will drink neither wine nor strong drink, and he will be filled with the sacred Spirit, even from his mother's womb. And many of the children of Israel will he turn to the Lord their Elohim. And he will go before him in the spirit and power of Elijah, to turn the hearts of the dads to the children, and the disobedient to the knowledge of the righteous, to prepare a people equipped for the Lord. And Zacharias said to the angel, How will I know this? For I am an old man and my woman well aged in years. And the angel answering said to him, I am Gabriel, that stands in the presence of Elohim, and am sent to speak to you, and to show you this good news. Now see, you will be speechless and not able to speak, until the day that these things will be performed, because you believed not my words, that will be fulfilled in their season. And the people waited for Zacharias, and wondered why he stayed so long in the temple. And when he came out, he could not speak to them, and they perceived that he had seen a vision in the temple, for he beckoned to them but remained speechless. And it came to pass, that as soon as the days of his course were accomplished, he left to his own home. And after those days his woman Elizabeth conceived, and secluded herself 5 months, saying, Thus has the Lord dealt with me in the days when he looked on me, to take away my reproach among men. And in the 6th month the angel Gabriel was sent from Elohim to a city of Galilee named Nazareth, to a virgin betrothed to a man whose name was Joseph, of the house of David, and the virgin's name was Mary. And the angel came in to her and said, Hail, you that are highly favored, the Lord is with you, blessed are you among women. And she, having seen, was troubled at his word, and was reasoning of what kind of salutation this might be. Then the angel said to her, Fear not, Mary, for you have found favor with Elohim. And observe, you will conceive in your womb and bring forth a son, and will call his name Jesus. He will be great, and will be called the Son of the Most High, and the Lord Yhwh Elohim will give to him the throne of his father David. And he will reign over the house of Jacob for the ages, and of his kingdom there will be no termination. And Mary said to the angel, How will this be, seeing a husband I have not had sexual relations with? And the angel answered and said to her, The sacred Spirit will come upon you, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you. Therefore also that most holy thing that will be born from you will be called the Son of Elohim. And see, your cousin Elizabeth, she has also conceived a son in her old age, and this is the 6th month with her, who is called barren. Because with Elohim nothing will be impossible. Then Mary replied, Behold the female slave of the Lord, let it be for me according to your word. Then the angel left her. And Mary got up in those days, and journeyed into the hill country with haste, into a city of Judah. And entered into the house of Zacharias and greeted Elizabeth. And it happened that, when Elizabeth heard the greeting of Mary, the fetus leapt in her womb, and Elizabeth was filled with the sacred Spirit, and she spoke out with a loud voice and said, Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of your womb. And why is this happened to me, that the mother of my Lord should come to me? For lo, as soon as the voice of your greeting sounded in my ears, the fetus leapt in my womb for joy. And blessed is she that believed, for there will be a fulfillment of those things that were told to her from the Lord. And Mary replied, My life does magnify the Lord, and my spirit has rejoiced in Elohim my Savior. For he has regarded the low estate of his female slave, for behold, from now on all generations will call me blessed. Because he that is mighty has done to me great things, and holy is his name. And his mercy is on them that venerate him from generation to generation. He has showed strength with his arm, he has scattered the proud in the imagination of their hearts. He has put down the mighty from their throne seats, and exalted them of low degree. He has filled the hungry with good things, and the rich he has sent away empty. He has given help to Israel his slave, in remembrance of his mercy. As he spoke to our fathers, to Abraham, and to his seed for the ages. And Mary remained with her about 3 months, then returned to her own home. And for Elizabeth the time came for her to give birth, and she gendered a son. And her neighbors and her cousins heard how the Lord had showed great mercy upon her, and they rejoiced with her. And it came to pass, that on the 8th day they came to circumcise the child, and they called him Zacharias, after the name of his dad. Then his mother answered and said, No, but he will rather be called John. But they replied to her, There is no one from your family that is called by this name. And they made signs to his dad, what he would have him named. And he asked for a writing table and wrote, saying, His name is John. And they all wondered. Then his mouth was opened immediately, and his tongue became free, and he spoke and praised Elohim. And fear came on all that lived around them, and all these matters were talked about throughout all the hill country of Judea. And all they that heard them laid them up in their hearts, saying, What kind of child will this be? And the power of the Lord was with him. And his father Zacharias was filled with the sacred spirit and prophesied, saying, Blessed is the Lord Elohim of Israel, for he has inspected and ransomed his people, and has raised up a horn of salvation for us in the house of his slave David. As he spoke by the mouth of his holy prophets, that have been from the ages. That we should be saved from our enemies, and from the hand of all that hate us. To perform the mercy promised to our forefathers, and to remember his holy covenant, the oath that he affirmed to our forefather Abraham. That he would grant to us, that we being delivered out of the hand of our enemies might serve him boldly, in holiness and righteousness before him, all the days of our life. And you, child, will be called the prophet of the Most High, for you will go before the face of the Lord to prepare his ways, to give knowledge of salvation to his people by the pardoning of their sins. Through the tender mercies of our Elohim, in which the rising from on high did look upon us, to give light to them that sit in darkness and in the shadow of death, to guide our feet into the way of peace. And the child grew up, and was strengthened in spirit, and he was in the uninhabited places until the day of his announcing to Israel. And it came about in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus, that all the Roman Empire should be taxed. And this taxing was first made when Cyrenius was governor of Syria. And all went to be taxed, everyone into his own city. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, out of the city of Nazareth into Judea, to the city of David that is called Bethlehem, because he was from the house and lineage of David, to be taxed with Mary his betrothed woman, being pregnant with child. And so it was that while they were there, the days were fulfilled that she should give birth. And she gave birth to her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling clothes and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the place of their lodging. And there were in the same country shepherds abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night. And lo, the angel of the Lord came upon them, and the glory of the Lord radiated around them, and they were greatly afraid. And the angel said to them, Fear not, for look, I bring you good news of great joy that will be for all people. Because to you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, that is Christ the Lord. And this will be a sign to you, you will find the infant wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger. And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of the cosmic hosts praising Elohim, saying, Glory to Elohim the Most High, and on earth peace, goodwill toward men. And it came to pass, as the angels were leaving from them into the cosmos, the shepherds said to one another, Let us now go to Bethlehem, and see this thing, that has come to pass that the Lord has made known to us. And they came with great speed, and found Mary, Joseph, and the infant lying in a manger. And when they had seen it, they made known abroad the saying that was told them concerning this child. And all they that heard it wondered at those things that were told them by the shepherds. But Mary kept all these things, and pondered them in her heart. And the shepherds returned, glorifying and praising Elohim for all the things that they had heard and seen, as it was told to them. And when 8 days were accomplished for the circumcising of the infant, his name was called Jesus, that was so named by the angel before he was conceived in the womb. And when the days of her purification according to the Torah of Moses was accomplished, they brought him to Jerusalem, to present him to the Lord, YHWH. As it is written in the law of the Lord, every male that opens the womb will be called holy to the Lord, and to offer a sacrifice according to what is said in the law of the Lord, a pair of turtle doves, or 2 young pigeons. And see, there was a man in Jerusalem whose name was Simeon, and the same man was righteous and devout, waiting for the consolation of Israel, and the sacred Spirit was upon him. And it was revealed to him by the sacred Spirit, that he should not see death, before he had seen the Lord's Christ. And he came by the Spirit into the sacred place, and when the parents brought in the child Jesus, to do for him after the custom of the law, then he took him up in his arms, and blessed Elohim and said, Lord, now let you your slave depart in peace, according to your word, because my eyes have seen your salvation, that you have prepared before the presence of all the people. A light to make visible to the Gentiles, and the glory of your people Israel. Then Joseph and his mother wondered at all those things that were spoken of him. And Simeon blessed them, and said to Mary his mother, Behold, this child is set for the fall and rising again of many in Israel, and for a sign that will be spoken against. Yes, a sword will pierce through your own life also, that the thoughts of many hearts may be revealed. And there was one Anna, a prophetess, the daughter of Phanuel, from the tribe of Asher. She was of a great age, and had lived with a husband 7 years from her virginity. And she was a widow of 84 years old, that departed not from the temple, but served alone with fastings and prayers night and day. And she coming in that instant gave thanks likewise to the Lord, and spoke of him to all them that looked for a ransom in Jerusalem. And when they had performed all things according to the law of the Lord, they returned to Galilee, to their own city Nazareth. And the child grew up and strengthened in spirit, filled with wisdom, Sophia, and the grace of Elohim was upon him. Now his parents went to Jerusalem every year at the festival of Passover. And when he was 12 years old, they went up to Jerusalem after the custom of the feast. And when they had completed the days, as they returned, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem, and Joseph and his mother were not aware of it. But they, supposing him to have been in the caravan, went a day's journey, and they asked for him among their kinsfolk and acquaintances. And when they did not find him, they turned back again to Jerusalem to look for him. And it came about, that after 3 days they found him in the temple, sitting in the middle of the teachers, both hearing them and asking them questions. And all that heard him were astonished at his understanding and answers. And when they saw him, they were shocked, and his mother said to him, Son, why have you treated us this way? Look, your dad and I have searched for you in anguish. He replied to them, How is it that you searched for me? Did you not know that I must be about my father's business? But they understood not the saying that he spoke to them. Then he went down with them and came to Nazareth, and was subject to them, but his mother kept all these sayings in her heart. And Jesus advanced in wisdom, Sophia, and maturity, and in favor with Elohim and man. Now in the 15th year of the reign of Tiberius Caesar, Pontius Pilate being governor of Judea, and Herod being tetrarch of Galilee, and his brother Philip tetrarch of Iturea and of the region of Trachonitis, and Lysanias the tetrarch of Abilene, Annas and Caiaphas being the high priests, the word of Elohim came to John the son of Zacharias in the uninhabited places. And he came into all the country around Jordan, heralding the baptism of a change of mind for the pardoning of sins, as it is written in the scroll of the words of Isaiah the prophet saying, The voice of one crying in the uninhabited places, Prepare the way of the Lord, make his path straight. Every valley will be filled and every mountain and hill will be made into a plain, and the curved will be made level and the rocky way will be made level, and all flesh will see the salvation of Elohim. Then he said to the crowd that came out to be baptized of him, O generation of vipers, who has shown you by words and arguments to flee from the wrath to come? Produce therefore fruits worthy of a change of mind, and do not begin to say within yourselves, We have Abraham as our father, because I say to you that Elohim is able of these stones to raise up children to Abraham. And now also the axe is laid to the root of the trees, every tree that does not produce good fruit is cut down, and cast into the fire. Then the people asked him saying, What will we do then? He answered and said to them, He that has 2 coats, let him give it to him that has none, and he that has food, let him do likewise. Then came tax collectors to be baptized and said to him, Teacher, what will we do? He replied to them, Exact no more than what is appointed you. And the soldiers also asked of him saying, And what will we do? And he replied to them, Do violence to no man, neither accuse anyone falsely, and be content with your wages. And as the people were in expectation and everyone was reasoning in their hearts about John, whether he were the Christ or not, John answered saying to all of them, I indeed baptize you with water, but one mightier than I will appear, the strap of whose shoes I am not worthy to untie, he will baptize you with the sacred Spirit and with fire, whose winnowing shovel is in his hand, and he will cleanse thoroughly his floor, and will gather the wheat to his storehouse, but the chaff he will burn up with fire that cannot be snuffed out. And many other things in his exhortation he announced as good news to the people. But Herod the tetrarch, being corrected by him for Herodias his brother Philip's woman and for all the bad things that Herod had done, added a further crime to all the rest of this by locking John up in prison. And it came about when all the people were being baptized, Jesus also being baptized and praying, the skies were opened and the sacred Spirit descended in a bodily shape like a dove upon him, and a voice came from the cosmos that said, You are my esteemed Son, in you I am well pleased. And Jesus himself began being about 30 years of age, being, as was supposed, the son of Joseph, that was the son of Heli, that was the son of Mathat, that was the son of Levi, that was the son of Melchi, that was the son of Janna, that was the son of Joseph. That was the son of Mattathias, that was the son of Amos, that was the son of Naum, that was the son of Yesli, that was the son of Naga, that was the son of Moth, that was the son of Mattathias, that was the son of Semei, that was the son of Joseph, that was the son of Judah. That was the son of Joanna, that was the son of Ressa, that was the son of Zorobabel, that was the son of Salathiel, that was the son of Neri. That was the son of Melchi, that was the son of Addi, that was the son of Kasam, that was the son of Elmodam, that was the son of that was the son of Hosea, that was the son of Eliezer, that was the son of Chorim, that was the son of Mathat, that was the son of Levi, that was the son of Simeon, that was the son of Judah, that was the son of Joseph, that was the son of Jonan, that was the son of Eliakim. That was the son of Meliah, that was the son of Menon, that was the son of Mattatha, that was the son of Nathan, that was the son of David, that was the son of Jesse, that was the son of Obed, that was the son of Booz, that was the son of Salmon, that was the son of Nisan, that was the son of Aminadab, that was the son of Aram, that was the son of Esrom, that was the son of Phares, that was the son of Judah. That was the son of Jacob, that was the son of Isaac, that was the son of Abraham, that was the son of Terah, that was the son of Nachor, that was the son of Saru, that was the son of Ragau, that was the son of Phalak, that was the son of Haber, that was the son of Salah, that was the son of Canaan, that was the son of Arphaxad, that was the son of Shem, that was the son of Noah, that was the son of Lamech. That was the son of Methuselah, that was the son of Enoch, that was the son of Jared, that was the son of Malaliel, that was the son of Canaan, that was the son of Enos, that was the son of Seth, that was the son of Adam, that was the son of Elohim. And Jesus, being full of the sacred Spirit, returned from Jordan, and was led by the Spirit into the uninhabited places for 40 days, being tested by the devil. And in those days he did not eat anything, and when that time ended, he afterwards was hungry. Then the devil said to him, If you are the Son of Elohim, command this stone that it be made bread. And Jesus answered him, saying, It is written, that man will not live by food alone, but by every word of Elohim. Then the devil, taking him up into a high mountain, showed to him all the kingdoms of the world in a moment of time. And the devil said to him, All this power will I give to you, and the glory of them, for that is in my custody, and to whoever I will, I give it. If you therefore will do homage to me, all will be yours. But Jesus answered and said to him, Get you behind me, Satan, for it is written, You will do homage to Lord Yhwh Elohim, and him only will you serve. Then he brought him to Jerusalem and set him on a pinnacle of the temple, and said to him, If you are the Son of Elohim, cast yourself down from here, for it is written, He will give his angels charge over you, to safeguard you, and in their hands they will bear you up, unless at any time you dash your foot against a stone. But Jesus answering said to him, It is said, You will not test the Lord Yhwh Elohim. And when the devil had ended all these tests, he departed from him for a season. Then Jesus returned in the power of the Spirit into Galilee, and there went out a report of him throughout the entire region of Jordan. And he taught in their synagogues, being praised by all. And he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, and as his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day and stood up to read. And there was handed to him the scroll of the prophet Isaiah. And when he had opened the scroll, he found the place where it was written, The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to announce the good news to the lowly. He has sent me to heal the broken, to herald pardon to the captives, and recovering of sight to the blind, to order release from bondage to them that are shattered, to herald the acceptable year of the Lord. Then he closed the scroll and gave it back to the attendant and sat down. And the eyes of all them that were in the synagogue were fixed on him. Then he began to say to them, This day is this scripture fulfilled in your ears. And all were witnesses to him and wondered at the gracious words that proceeded out of his mouth. Then they said, Is not this Joseph's son? He replied to them, You will surely say to me this proverb, Physician, heal yourself, whatever we have heard done in Capernaum, do also here in your country. He replied, Of a truth I say to you, no prophet is accepted in his own country. Moreover I tell you truly, many widows were in Israel in the days of Elijah, when the skies were shut up 3.5 years, when great famine was throughout all the land. But to none of them was Elijah sent, except to Sarepta, a city of Sidon, to a woman that was a widow. And many lepers were in Israel in the time of Elisha the prophet, and none of them were cleansed, except Naaman the Syrian. And all they in the synagogue, when they heard these things, were filled with anger, and got up, and cast him out of the city, and led him to the edge of the hill where their city was built, so that they might cast him down the cliff. But he went through the middle of them and went his way, and came down to Capernaum, a city of Galilee, and taught them on the Sabbath days. And they were shocked at his doctrine, for his word was with power. And in the synagogue there was a man that had a spirit of an unclean spirit, and cried out with a loud voice, saying, Leave us alone, what have we to do with you, Jesus of Nazareth? Are you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of Elohim. But Jesus censured him severely, saying, Hold your peace and come out of him. And when the demon had thrown him in the middle, he came out of him and did not hurt him. And they were all amazed, and spoke among themselves, saying, What a word is this! For with authority and power he commands the unclean spirits, and they come out. And the fame of him went out into every district of the surrounding country. Then he got up and left the synagogue and entered into Simon's home. And Simon's mother-in-law was taken with a great fever, and they requested him for her. Then he stood over her and rebuked the fever, and it left her, and immediately she got up and attended to them. Now when the sunset came, all of them that had any sick with different diseases brought them to him, and he laid his hands on every one of them, and healed them. And evil spirits also came out of many, crying out and saying, You are Christ the Son of Elohim. But he, severely censuring them, permitted them not to speak, for they knew that he was Christ. And when it was day, he departed and went to an uninhabited place, and the people sought him and came to him and stayed, so that he should not leave from them. He said to them, I must announce the good news of the kingdom of Elohim to other cities too, because for this am I sent. Then he taught in the synagogues of Galilee. And it came about that as the people pressed upon him to hear the word of Elohim, he stood by Lake Gennesaret, and saw 2 ships standing by the lake, but the fishermen had left them, and were washing off their nets. He entered into one of the ships, that was Simon's, and asked him if he would cast off a little from the land. Then he sat down and taught the people out of the ship. Now when he had stopped speaking, he said to Simon, Launch out into the deep and let down your nets for a catching. But Simon answering said to him, Master, we have labored all the night and have taken nothing, nevertheless at your word I will let down the net. And when they had this done, they enclosed a large number of fish, and their nets broke. And they signaled to their partners, that were in the other ship, so that they could come to help them. And they came and filled both the ships, so that they began to sink. When Simon Peter saw it, he fell down at Jesus' knees, saying, Go away from me, for I am a sinful man, O Lord. For he was astonished, and all that were with him, at the catch of fish that they had taken. And so was also James, and John, the sons of Zebedee, that were partners with Simon. But Jesus said to Simon, Fear not, from this time on you will catch men. And when they had brought their ships to land, they forsook all, and followed him. And it came about when he was in one city, behold, a man permeated with leprosy, who seeing Jesus fell on his face, and begged him, saying, Lord, if you will, you can make me clean. Then he put out his hand and touched him, saying, I will, be you clean. And instantly the leprosy left him. Then he charged him to tell no man, but go, and show yourself to the priest, and offer for your cleansing, according as Moses commanded, for a testimony to them. But so much the more went there a fame abroad of him, and large crowds came together to hear, and to be healed by him from their infirmities. And he withdrew himself into the uninhabited places and offered prayers. And it came about one day, as he was teaching, that there were Pharisees and interpreters of the law sitting by, that were come out of every town of Galilee, and Judea, and Jerusalem, and the power of the Lord was there to heal them. And lo, men brought in a bed a man that was taken with a cerebral palsy, and they wanted to bring him in, and to lay him before him. Then when they could not find by what way they might bring him in because of the crowds, they went upon the housetop and let him down through the roofing tile with his bed into the middle where Jesus was. And when he saw their faith, he said to him, Man, your sins are forgiven you. But the scribes and the Pharisees began to reason, saying, Who is this that speaks blasphemies? Who can forgive sins but Elohim alone? But when Jesus perceived their thoughts, he answering replied to them, What is this you are reasoning in your hearts? Which is easier to say, Your sins are forgiven you, or to say, Get up and walk? But that you may know that the Son of Man has power upon earth to forgive sins, he said to the sick of the palsy, I say to you, arise, and take up your bed, and go to your home. Then instantly he got up before them and took up what he laid on, and left to his own home, glorifying Elohim. And they were all amazed, and they glorified Elohim, and were filled with fear, saying, We have seen incredible things today. And after these things he went out and saw a tax collector named Levi, sitting at the receipt of custom, and he said to him, Follow me. And he left all, got up and followed him. Then Levi made him a great banquet in his own home, and there was a large company of tax collectors and of others that sat down with them. But their scribes and Pharisees murmured against his disciples, saying, Why do you eat and drink with tax collectors and sinners? Jesus answering said to them, They that are whole do not need a physician, but they that are sick. I came not to call the righteous, but sinners to a change of mind. Then they said to him, Why do the disciples of John fast often, and make entreaty to Elohim, and likewise the disciples of the Pharisees, but yours eat and drink? He replied to them, Can you make the children of the bridal chamber fast, while the bridegroom is with them? But the days will come, when the bridegroom will be taken away from them, and then will they fast in those days. Then he spoke also a parable to them. No one puts a piece of a new garment upon an old garment, if otherwise, then both the new makes a tear, And the piece that was taken out of the new is not compatible with the old. And no one puts new wine into old bottles, unless the new wine will burst the bottles, and be spilled, and the bottles will be destroyed. But new wine must be put into new bottles, and both are preserved. No one also having drunk old wine immediately desires new wine, because he will say, the old is better. And it came to pass on the second Sabbath after the first, that he went through the cornfields, and his disciples plucked the ears of corn, and ate, rubbing them in their hands. And some of the Pharisees said to them, Why are you doing what is not lawful to do on the Sabbath days? But Jesus answering them said, Have you not read so much as this, what David did, when he himself was hungry, and they that were with him, how he went into the house of Elohim, and did take and eat of the consecrated loaves, and gave also to them that were with him, which is not lawful to eat except for the priests alone? And he said to them, The Son of Man is Lord also of the Sabbath. And it came about also on another Sabbath that he entered into the synagogue and taught, and there was a man whose right hand was withered. And the scribes and Pharisees watched him, whether he would heal on the Sabbath day, that they might find an accusation against him. But he knew their thoughts and said to the man that had the withered hand, Get up, and stand out here in the middle. And he got up and stood forth. Then said Jesus to them, I will ask you one thing, is it lawful on the Sabbath days to do good, or to do evil? To save life, or to destroy it? And looking around upon them all, he said to the man, Stretch out your hand. And he did so, and his hand was restored whole as the other. And they were filled with folly, and conversed with one another what they might do to Jesus. And it came to pass in those days that he went out into a mountain to offer prayers, and continued all night in prayer to Elohim. And when it was day, he called to himself his disciples, and from them he chose 12, who also he named apostles, Simon, who he also named Peter, and Andrew his brother, James, and John, Philip and Bartholomew, Matthew and Thomas, James the son of Alphaeus, and Simon called Zealots, and Judas the brother of James, and Judas Iscariot, that also was the traitor. Then he came down with them and stood in the plain with the company of his disciples, and a large crowd of people out of all Judea and Jerusalem. And from the seacoast of Tyre and Sidon, they came to hear him and to be healed of their diseases. And they that were vexed with unclean spirits were healed. The whole crowd sought to touch him, for there went miraculous power out of him, and healed them all. And he lifted up his eyes on his disciples, and said, Blessed are the poor, for yours is the kingdom of Elohim. Blessed are you that hunger now, for you will be filled. Blessed are you that weep now, for you will laugh. Blessed are you, when men will hate you, and when they will separate you from their company and will reproach you, and cast out your name as bad, for the Son of Man's sake. Rejoice you in that day and leap for joy, because look, your reward is great in the cosmos, because in the same way did their forefathers treat the prophets. But woe to you that are wealthy, because you have received your comfort. Woe to you that are full, because you will hunger. Woe to you that laugh now, because you will mourn and weep. Woe to you, when all men will speak well of you, because so did their fathers speak to the false prophets. But I say to you that hear, love your enemies, do good to them that hate you. Bless them that curse you, and pray for them that abusively use you. And to him that strikes you on one cheek offer also the other, and him that takes away your tunic forbid him not to take your coat also. Give to everyone that asks of you, and from him that takes away your goods ask them not again. And as you would have people that they should do to you, do you also to them in the same way. For if you dearly love them that love you, what thanks do you have for that? Because sinners also love those that love them. But if you do good to them that do good to you, what thanks do you have for that? Because sinners even do those things too. And if you lend to them you hope to receive from, what thanks have you? Because sinners also lend to sinners, to receive as much back. But you should love your enemies, do good and lend, hoping for nothing back, then your reward will be great and you will be the children of the highest, because he is kind to the unthankful and to the bad-natured. Be you therefore merciful, as your Father also is merciful. Judge not, and you will not be judged, condemn not, and you will not be condemned, set free, and you will be set free, give, and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, and shaken together and running over, will men give into your bosom. Because with the same measure that you measure with, it will be measured back to you again. Then he spoke a parable to them, Can the blind lead the blind? Will they not both fall into the ditch? The student is not above his teacher, but everyone perfected will be as his teacher. So why discern the twig that is in your brother's eye, but observe not the beam that is in your own eye? Or how are you able to say to your brother, Brother, permit that I may take out the twig that is in your eye, when you yourself observed not the beam in your own eye? Hypocrite, take first the beam out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take out the twig that is in your brother's eye. For a good tree brings not forth corrupt fruit, neither does a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Because every tree is known by its own fruit. For not from thorns do they gather figs, nor from a bramble do they crop a grape. A good person out of the good treasure of his heart brings out what is good, and a bad person out of the bad treasure of his heart brings out what is bad, because out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaks. And why call me, Lord, Lord, and do not the things that I say? Whoever comes to me and hears my sayings and does them, I will teach you to whom that person is resembling. He is like a man that built a house and excavated deep, and laid the foundation on a rock, and when the floods arose, the stream beat vehemently upon that house, and could not shake it because it was founded upon a rock. But he that hears and does not, is like a man that without a foundation built a house on earth only, against which the stream did beat vehemently, and immediately it fell, and the ruin of that house was great. Now when he had ended all his sayings in the hearing of the people, he entered into Capernaum. And a certain centurion's slave, who was dear to him, was sick and ready to die. And when he heard of Jesus, he sent to him the elders of the Jews, requesting him that he would come and heal his slave. And when they came to Jesus, they requested him immediately, saying that he was worthy for whom he should do this. Because he was fond of our nation, and he has restored us a synagogue. Then Jesus went with them. And when he was only a little distance from the house, the centurion sent friends to him, saying to him, Lord, trouble not yourself, because I am not worthy that you should enter under my roof. And neither thought I myself worthy to come to you, but say in a word and my slave will be healed. For I also am a man appointed under authority, having under me soldiers, and I say to one, Go, and he goes, and to another, Come, and he comes, and to my slave, Do this, and he does it. When Jesus heard these things, he marveled at him, and turning around, said to the people that followed him, I say to you, I have not found so great faith, no, not in Israel. And they that were sent, returning to the house, found the slave whole that had been sick. And it came to pass, on the next day, he was going on to a city called Nain, and there were going with him many of his disciples with a large crowd. Now when he approached the gate of the city, look, there was a dead man carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow, and many people from the city were with her. And when the Lord saw her, he had compassion on her, and said to her, Weep not. And he came and touched the coffin, and they that carried him stood still. And he said, Young man, I say to you, arise. And he that was dead sat up and began to speak. And he delivered him to his mother. And there came a terror on all, and they glorified Elohim, saying, That a great prophet is risen up among us, and that Elohim has visited his people. And this rumor of him went out throughout all Judea, and throughout all the neighboring regions. And the disciples of John reported to him of all these things. And John calling to him 2 of his disciples sent them to Jesus, saying, Are you he that should come, or do we look for another? When the men were come to him, they said, John Baptist has sent us to you, saying, Are you he that should come, or look we for another? And in that same hour he healed many of their sicknesses and plagues, and of evil spirits, and to many that were blind he gave sight. Then Jesus answering said to them, Go your way, and tell John what things you have seen and heard, how that the blind see, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, to the poor the good news is announced. And blessed is he whoever will not be offended in me. And when the messengers of John had left, he began to speak to the people concerning John, For what did you go out into the uninhabited places to see? A reed shaken by the wind? But what did you go out to see? A man clothed in soft garments? See, they that are gorgeously apparelled and live delicately, are in king's courts. But what did you go out to see? A prophet? Yes, I say to you, and much more than a prophet. This is he of whom it is written, Behold, I send my messenger before your face, that will prepare your way before you. For I say to you, among those that are gendered of women there is not a greater prophet than John the Baptist, but he that is least in the kingdom of Elohim is greater than he. And all the people that heard him and the tax collectors, justified Elohim, being immersed with the baptism of John. But the Pharisees and lawyers rejected the counsel of Elohim against themselves, being not baptized by him. Then the Lord said, How then will I compare the men of this generation? And to what are they resembling? They are compared to children sitting in the marketplace, and calling one to another, and saying, We have piped to you and you have not danced, we have sung dirges to you and you have not wept. For John the Baptist came neither eating bread nor drinking wine, and you say, He has an evil spirit. The Son of Man has come eating and drinking, and you say, Look, a gluttonous man and a wino, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. But wisdom, Sophia, is rendered righteous of all her children. And one of the Pharisees requested of him that he would eat with him. And he went into the Pharisee's house and sat down. And look, a woman in the city that was a sinner, when she knew that Jesus sat at dinner in the Pharisee's house, brought an alabaster box of ointment, and stood at his feet behind him weeping, and began to wash his feet with tears, and did wipe them with the hairs of her head, and kissed his feet, and anointed them with the ointment. Now when the Pharisee that had invited him saw this, he spoke within himself saying, This man if he were a prophet would have known who and what sort of woman this is that touched him, because she is a sinner. And Jesus answering said to him, Simon, I have somewhat to say to you. And he replied, Teacher, continue on. There was a certain creditor that had 2 debtors, the one owed 500 denarii, and the other 50. And when they had nothing to pay, he frankly pardoned them both. Tell me therefore, which of them will love him the most? Simon answered and said, I suppose that he who he had pardoned most. And he replied to him, You have rightly judged. And he turned to the woman and said to Simon, Observe you this woman? I entered into your house, you gave me no water for my feet, but she had washed my feet with tears, and wiped them with the hairs of her head. You gave me no kiss, but this woman since the time I came in has not ceased to kiss my feet. My head with oil you did not anoint, but this woman has anointed my feet with ointment. Therefore I say to you, her sins that are many, are sent away because she loved much, but to whom little is forgiven, the same loves little. And he said to her, Your sins are sent away. And they that sat at dinner with him began to say within themselves, Who is this that can send away sins also? Then he said to the woman, Your faith has saved you, go in peace. And it came about later that he went throughout every city and village, heralding and showing the good news of the kingdom of Elohim, and the 12 were with him, and some women that had been healed of evil spirits and infirmities, Mary called Magdalene, out of whom left 7 demons. And Joanna the woman of Chuza, Herod's steward, and Susanna, and many others, that attended to him from their possessions. And when many people were gathered together, and had come to him out of every city, he spoke by a parable. A sower went out to sow his seed, and as he sowed, some fell by the roadside, and it was trampled down, and the flying creatures of the sky devoured it. And some fell on a rock, and as soon as it was sprung up, it withered away, because it lacked moisture. Then some fell among thorns, and the thorns sprang up with it, and choked it. But others fell on good soil, sprang up and yielded fruit 100-fold. And when he had said these things, he cried, He that has ears to hear, let him hear. Then his disciples asked him saying, What might this parable mean? He replied, To you it is given to know the hidden thing, Urim Thummim, of the kingdom of Elohim, but to others in parables, that seeing they might not see, and hearing they might not understand. Now the parable is this, the seed is the word of Elohim. Those by the roadside are they that hear, then comes the devil, and takes away the word out of their hearts, unless they should believe and be saved. They on the rock are they that when they hear, receive the word with joy, but these have no root so that for a while they believe but in time of trial fall away. And those that fell among thorns are they that when they have heard, go out, but are choked with cares and riches and pleasures from this life, and bring no fruit to maturity. But those on the good soil are they that in an honest and good heart, having heard the word, keep it secure, and produced fruit with patience. No man, when he has lighted a candle, covers it with a vessel, or puts it under a bed, but sets it on a candlestick, so that they entering may see the light. For nothing is secret that will not appear in history, neither anything hidden that will not be made public. Take heed therefore how you hear, because whoever has, to him will be given, and whoever has not, from him will be taken even what he seems to have. Then came to him his mother and his brothers, but could not come to him because of the crowds. And it was told him by some that said, Your mother and your brothers stand outside, desiring to see you. But he answered and said to them, My mother and my brothers are those that hear the word of Elohim, and do it. Now it came to pass on a particular day, that he went into a ship with his disciples and said to them, Let us go over to the other side of the lake. So they launched out. But as they sailed he fell asleep, and there came down a storm of wind on the lake, and they were filling with water and were in jeopardy. And they came to him and woke him up saying, Master, Master, we are ruined. Then he got up and rebuked the wind and the surging of the water, and it stopped, and there was a calm. He said to them, Where is your faith? And they being afraid wondered, saying to one another, What kind of man is this? Because he commands even the winds and water, and they obey him. Then they arrived in the Gadarenes region that is opposite Galilee. And when he landed, there met him out from the city a certain man that had evil spirits a long time, and wore no clothes, neither lived in any house but in the tombs. When he saw Jesus he cried out and fell down before him, and with a loud voice said, What have I to do with you, Jesus, you Son of Elohim Most High? I beg you, distress me not. For he had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man. For many times it had caught him, and he was kept bound with chains and in fetters, but he broke the bands, and was driven by the evil spirits into the uninhabited places. Jesus asked him saying, What is your name? And he replied, Legion, because many demons were entered into him. And they begged him that he would not command them to go out into the abyss. And there was there a herd of many swine feeding on the mountain, and they requested of him that he would permit them to enter into them. And he permitted them. Then the evil spirits went out of the man and entered into the swine, and the herd ran violently down a precipice and into the lake, and were drowned. When they that fed them saw what was done, they fled, and went and told it in the city and in the region. Then they went out to see what was done and came to Jesus, and found the man, out of whom the demons had left, sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. They also that saw it told them by what means he that was possessed of the demons was healed. Then the whole assembly of the Gadarenes region round about requested him to leave from them because they were taken with great fear, and he went up into the ship and returned back again. Now the man out of whom the demons had left, requested of him that he might be with him, but Jesus sent him away saying, Return to your own house, and show how great things Elohim has done to you. So he went his way, and heralded throughout the whole city how great things Jesus had done for him. And it came to pass that when Jesus had returned, the people gladly received him because they were all waiting for him. And look, there came a man named Jairus, and he was a ruler of the synagogue, and he fell down at Jesus' feet, and requested him that he would come into his house. Since he had only one daughter about 12 years of age, and she lay a-dying. But as he went the people pressed around him. And a woman having a flowing issue of blood for 12 years, that had spent all her resources upon physicians but could not be cured by any of them, came behind him and touched the border of his garment, and immediately her flowing issue of blood stopped flowing. And Jesus said, Who touched me? When all denied, Peter and they that were with him said, Master, the crowds press and squeeze you and you say, Who touched me? Jesus replied, Somebody has touched me because I perceive that virtue has gone out of me. And when the woman saw that she was not hidden, she came trembling and falling down before him, she declared to him before all the people for what cause she had touched him, and how she was healed instantly. And he said to her, Daughter, be of good comfort, your faith has made you whole, go in peace. While he still spoke, there came one from the rulers of the synagogue's house saying to him, Your daughter is dead, trouble not the teacher. But when Jesus heard it, he answered him saying, Fear not but believe only and she will be made whole. And when he came into the house, he permitted no one to go in, except Peter, James, and John, and the dad and mother of the girl. And all wept, and beat on themselves for her, but he said, Weep not, she is not dead, but sleeps. But they laughed him to scorn, knowing that she was dead. And he put them all out, and took her by the hand, and called saying, Girl, arise. And her breath returned and she got up immediately, and he commanded to give her food. And her parents were astonished, but he charged them that they should tell no one what was done. Then he called his 12 disciples together, and gave them power and authority over all evil spirits and to heal diseases. And he sent them to herald the kingdom of Elohim and to heal the sick. Then he said to them, Take nothing for your journey, neither staff, nor wallet, neither bread, neither money, neither have 2 coats each. And whatever house you enter into, there stay, and from there depart. And whoever will not receive you, when you go out from that city, shake off the very dust from your feet for a testimony against them. Then they left, and went through the towns, announcing the good news and healing everywhere. Now Herod the Tetrarch heard of all that was done by him, and he was perplexed, because it was said by some, that John was risen from the dead, and by some, that Elijah had appeared, and by others, that one of the old prophets was risen again. But Herod said, John the first had beheaded, but who is this of whom I hear such things? And he desired to see him. And the apostles having turned back, declared to him how great things they did, and having taken them, he withdrew by himself to a desert place of a city called Bethsaida. And the people, when they knew of it, followed him, and he received them, and spoke to them of the kingdom of Elohim, and healed them that had need of healing. And when the day began to be far spent, then came the 12 and said to him, Send the crowds away so that they may go into the towns and neighboring regions, and lodge, and get provisions, for we are here in an uninhabited place. But he replied to them, You give them food to eat. But they replied, We have no more than 5 loaves and 2 fish, except we should go and buy food for all these people. Since there were about 5,000 people. And he said to his disciples, Make them sit down by 50 in a company. And they did so, and made them all sit down. Then he took the 5 loaves and 2 fish, and looking up to the skies he blessed them and broke, and gave to the disciples to set before the crowds. And they did eat, and were all filled, and there was taken up from the fragments that remained 12 baskets. And it came about as he was alone praying, his disciples were with him, and he asked them saying, Whom do the people say that I am? They answering replied, John the Baptist, but some say Elijah, and others say that one of the old prophets has risen again. He said to them, But who do you say that I am? Peter answering said, The Christ, anointed, of Elohim. Moreover he charged and commanded them to tell no one this thing, saying, The Son of Man must suffer many things, and be rejected of the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be slain, and then be resurrected the third day. He said to all of them, If anyone will come after me, let him deny himself, and take up his stake daily, and follow me. For whoever will save his life will lose it, but whoever will lose his life for my sake, the same will save it. For what is a man profited from, if he gains the whole world and is himself destroyed, or is injured? Because whoever will be ashamed of me and of my words, of him will the Son of Man be ashamed, when he will come in his own glory, and in his Father's, and of the holy angels. But I tell you a truth, there will be some standing here that will not taste of death until they see the kingdom of Elohim. And it came about 8 days after these sayings, he took Peter, John, and James, and went up into a mountain to offer prayers. Then as he prayed, the fashion of his appearance was altered, and his clothing was bright and flashing. And lo, there talked with him 2 men, which were Moses and Elijah, who appeared in glory, and spoke of his decease that he should accomplish at Jerusalem. But Peter and they that were with him were heavy with sleep, and when they were awake, they saw his glory and the 2 men that stood with him. And it came to pass, as they departed from him, Peter said to Jesus, Master, it is good for us to be here, so let us make 3 tabernacles, one for you, and one for Moses, and one for Elijah, not knowing what he said. While he spoke this, there came a cloud mass and overshadowed them, and they were terrified as they entered into the cloud mass. And there came a voice out of the cloud mass saying, This is my esteemed Son, hear him. And when the voice had spoken, Jesus was found alone. And they kept quiet and told no one in those days any of those things that they had seen. And it came about that on the next day, when they were come down from the mountain, many people met him. And see, a man from the crowd cried out saying, Teacher, I beg you, look upon my son because he is my only child. And lo, a spirit does seize him, and suddenly he will cry out, and it convulses him with foaming, and it hardly departs from him, bruising him. Then I requested from your disciples to cast him out, and they could not. Jesus answering said, O faithless and perverse generation, how long will I be with you, and sustain you? Bring your son here. And as he was still coming, the demon threw him down and tore him. But Jesus rebuked the unclean spirit and healed the child, and delivered him again to his dad. And they were all amazed at the mighty power of Elohim. But while everyone wondered over all the things that Jesus did, he said to his disciples, Let these sayings sink down into your ears, for the Son of Man will be delivered into the hands of men. But they did not understand this saying, as it was hidden from them, so that they perceived it not. And they were afraid to ask him of that saying. Then there arose a reasoning among them, that from them, who should be greatest. Then Jesus, perceiving the thoughts of their heart, took a child and set him by him, and said to them, Whoever will receive this child in my name receives me, and whoever will receive me receives him that sent me, because he that is least among you all, the same will be great. And John answered and said, Master, we saw one casting out demons in your name, and we forbid him, because he follows not with us. But Jesus replied to him, Forbid him not, because he that is not against us is for us. And it came to pass, in the completing of the days of his being taken up, that he fixed his face to go on to Jerusalem. And sent messengers before his face, and they went, and entered into a village of the Samaritans, to make ready for him. And it came to pass, in the completing of the days of his being taken up, that he fixed his face to go on to Jerusalem. And when his disciples James and John saw this, they said, Lord, Sir, will you that we command fire to come down from the skies, and consume them even as Elijah did? But he turned, and rebuked them and said, You know not what manner of spirit you are of. Because the Son of Man is not come to destroy men's lives, but to save them. And they went to another village. And it came to pass, that as they traveled in the way, a certain person said to him, Lord, I will follow you wherever you go. Then Jesus said to him, Foxes have holes, and birds of the sky have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. And he said to another, Follow me. But he replied, Lord, permit me first to go and bury my dad. Jesus said to him, Let the dead bury their dead, but you go and announce the kingdom of Elohim. And another also said, Lord, I will follow you, but let me first go bid them farewell, that are at home at my house. But Jesus replied to him, No man, having put his hand to the plow and looking back, is fit for the kingdom of Elohim. After these things the Lord appointed another 70 also, and sent them 2 and 2 before his face into every city and village, where he himself would come. Therefore he said to them, The harvest truly is great, but the laborers are few. Pray accordingly to the Lord of the harvest, that he would send out laborers into his harvest. Go your ways, see, I send you out as lambs among wolves. Carry neither purse, nor wallet, nor shoes, and greet no man by the way. And into whatever house you enter, first say, Peace be to this house. And if the Son of Peace is there, your peace will rest upon him, if not, it will return to you again. And in the same house remain, eating and drinking such things as they give, for the laborer is worthy of his hire. Go not from house to house. And into whatever city you enter, and they receive you, eat such things as are set before you, and heal the sick that are there, and say to them, the kingdom of Elohim is come near to you. But into whatever city you enter, and they receive you not, go your ways out into the streets of the same and say, even the very dust of your city that clings on us, we do wipe off against you. Moreover be sure of this, that the kingdom of Elohim has come near to you. But I say to you, that it will be more tolerable in that day for Sodom, than for that city. Woe to you, Chorazin! Woe to you, Bethsaida! For if the mighty works had been done in Tyre and Sidon that have been done in you, they would have a great while ago had a change of mind, sitting in sackcloth and ashes. But it will be more tolerable for Tyre and Sidon at the judgment, than for you. And you, Capernaum, that are exalted to the skies, will be thrust down to Hades. He that hears you hears me, and he that despises you despises me, and he that despises me despises him that sent me. And the 70 returned again with joy, saying, Lord, even the demons are subject to us through your name. And he said to them, I beheld Satan as lightning fall from the skies. Behold, I give to you power to tread on snakes and scorpions, and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing will by any means hurt you. But in this rejoice not that the spirits are subject to you, but rather rejoice, because your names are written in the cosmos. In that hour Jesus rejoiced in spirit and said, I thank you, O Father, Lord of the cosmos and earth, that you have hidden these things from the wise and prudent, and have revealed them to the unskilled children. Even so, Father, for this seemed good in your sight. All things are delivered to me from my Father, and no man knows who the Son is, but the Father, and who the Father is, but the Son, and he to whom the Son will reveal him. Then he turned to his disciples and said privately, Blessed are the eyes that see the things that you see, for I tell you, that many prophets and kings have desired to see those things that you see, and have not seen them, and to hear those things that you hear, and have not heard them. And look, a certain lawyer stood up and tested him, saying, Teacher, what will I do to inherit age-lasting life? He replied to him, What is written in the law? How are you reading it? And he answering said, You will love the Lord your Elohim with all your heart, and with all your life, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself. And he replied to him, You have answered right, this do, and you will live. But he, willing to justify himself, said to Jesus, And who is my neighbor? Then Jesus answering said, A certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and fell among thieves that stripped him of his clothing and wounded him, and departed, leaving him half dead. And by chance there came down a certain priest that way, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. And likewise a Levite, when he was at the place, came and looked on him, and passed by on the other side. But a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came down to him, and when he saw him, he had compassion on him, and went to him, and bound up his wounds, pouring in oil and wine, and set him on his own animal, and brought him to an inn, and took care of him. And on the next day when he left, he took out 2 denarius, and gave them to the innkeeper, and said to him, Take care of him, and whatever you spend more, when I come back, I will repay you. Which now of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to him that fell among the thieves? And he replied, He that showed mercy on him. Then said Jesus to him, Go, and do likewise. Now it came about, as they went, that he entered into a certain village, and a certain woman named Martha received him into her house. And she had a sister called Mary, that also sat at Jesus' feet and heard his word. But Martha was distracted about much serving, and came to him and said, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Speak to her then that she should help me. But Jesus answered and said to her, Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things, but one thing is needful, and Mary has chosen that good part that will not be taken away from her. And it came about that as he was praying in a certain place, when he stopped, one of his disciples said to him, Lord, teach us to pray as John also taught his disciples. He replied to them, When you pray, say, Our Father that is in the cosmos, consecrated be your name. Your kingdom be established. Your purposes appear in history, as in the cosmos, so on earth. Grant us day by day our bread food. And forgive us our sins, for we also forgive everyone that is indebted to us. And lead us not into trials, but deliver us from bad. Then he said to them, Which of you will have a friend and will go to him at midnight and say to him, Friend, lend me 3 loaves, for a friend of mine in his journey has come to me and I have nothing to set before him. And he from within will answer and say, Trouble me not, the door is now shut, and my children are with me in bed, I cannot get up and give to you. I say to you, though he will not get up and give to him, because he is his friend, still because of his impudence he will get up and give him as many as he needs. And I say to you, Ask, and it will be given you, seek, and you will find, knock, and it will be opened to you. For everyone that asks receives, and he that seeks finds, and to him that knocks it will be opened. If a son will ask bread of any of you that is a dad, will he give him a stone? Or if he asks a fish, will he for a fish give him a snake? Or if he will ask an egg, will he offer him a scorpion? If you then, being bad, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your cosmic Father give the sacred Spirit to them that ask him? Then he was casting out a demon, and it was dumb. And it came to pass, when the demon was gone out, the dumb spoke, and the people wondered. But some of them said, He casts out demons through Beelzebub the chief of the demons. And others, testing him, sought of him a sign from the cosmos. But he, knowing their thoughts, said to them, Every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and a house divided against a house falls. If Satan also is divided against himself, how will his kingdom stand? Because you say that I cast out demons through Beelzebub. And if I by Beelzebub cast out demons, by whom do your sons cast them out? Therefore they will be your judges. But if I with the finger of Elohim cast out demons, no doubt the kingdom of Elohim has come upon you. When a strong-armed man guards his courtyard, his goods are in peace, but when a stronger one than him will come upon him and overcome him, he takes from him all his armor in which he trusted, and divides his spoils. He that is not with me is against me, and he that gathers not with me scatters. When the unclean spirit has gone out of a man, he walks through dry places, seeking rest, and finding none he says, I will return to my house where I came out of. And when he comes back, he finds it swept and garnished. Then he goes, and takes to him 7 other spirits more wicked than himself, and they enter and live there, and the last state of that man is worse than the first. And it came about as he spoke these things, a certain woman from the crowd lifted up her voice and said to him, Blessed is the womb that gendered you, and the nipples that you have suckled. But he replied, Yes, rather, blessed are they that hear the word of Elohim, and observe it. And when the crowd was gathered tightly together, he began to say, This is a bad generation. They seek a sign, and there will no sign be given it, except the sign of the prophet Jonah. For as Jonah was a sign to the Ninevites, so will also the Son of Man be to this generation. The queen of the south will rise up in the judgment with the men of this generation, and condemn them, for she came from the outer parts of the earth to hear the wisdom, Sophia, of Solomon, and behold, a greater one than Solomon is here. The men of Nineveh will rise up in the judgment with this generation, and will condemn it, for they changed their minds at the heralding of Jonah, and behold, a greater one than Jonah is here. No man, when he has lighted a candle, puts it in a vault, neither under a bushel, but on a candlestick, so that they that come in may see the light. The light of the body is the eye, therefore when your eye is single, your whole body also is full of light, but when your eye is bad, your body also is full of darkness. Take heed therefore that the light that is in you is not darkness. If your whole body therefore is full of light, having no part darkness, all the body will be full of light, like the bright shining of a candle does when it gives you light. And as he spoke, a certain Pharisee requested him to dine with him, and he went in and sat down for supper. And when the Pharisee saw it, he marveled that he had not first washed before dinner. But the Lord said to him, Now do you Pharisees make clean the outside of the cup and the platter, but your inward parts are full of robbery and depravity. You fools, did not he that made what is without make what is within also? But rather give donations of such things as you have, and behold, all things are clean to you. But woe to you, Pharisees! For you tithe mint and rue and all types of vegetables, and pass over judgment and the love, agape, of Elohim, these should you to have done, and not to leave the other undone. Woe to you, Pharisees! For you love the uppermost seats in the synagogues and greetings in the markets. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because you are as the unseen tombs, and the men walking over them have not known. Then answered one of the lawyers and said to him, Teacher, thus saying you reproach us too? And he replied, Woe to you also, you lawyers! For you laden men with burdens grievous to be borne, and you yourselves touch not the burdens with one of your fingers. Woe to you! For you builded tombs of the prophets, and your fathers killed them. Truly you bear witness that you allow the deeds of your fathers, for they indeed killed them, and you build their tombs. Therefore also said the wisdom, Sophia, of Elohim, I will send them prophets and apostles, and some of them they will slay and persecute, that the blood of all the prophets that was shed from the foundation of the world, may be required of this generation, from the blood of Abel to the blood of Zacharias that perished between the altar and the temple. Of a truth I say to you, it will be required of this generation. Woe to you, lawyers! For you have taken away the key of knowledge, you entered not in yourselves, and them that were entering in you hindered. And as he said these things to them, the scribes and the Pharisees began to engage him vehemently, and to provoke him to speak of many things, laying wait for him, and seeking to catch something out of his mouth so that they might accuse him. In the meantime, when there were gathered together an innumerable crowd of people, so that they trampled on each other, he began to say to his disciples first of all, Beware of the leaven of the Pharisees, that is hypocrisy. Because there is nothing covered, that will not be revealed, neither hidden, that will not become known. Therefore whatever you have spoken in darkness will be heard in the light, and what you have spoken in the ear in closets will be proclaimed upon the housetops. And I say to you, my friends, be not afraid of them that kill the body, and after that have no more that they can do to you. But I will forewarn you who you will fear. Fear him, that after he has killed has power to cast into Gehenna fire. Yes, I say to you, fear him. Are not 5 sparrows sold for 2 pennies, and not one of them is forgotten before Elohim? But even the very hairs of your head are all numbered. Fear not therefore, you are of more value than many sparrows. Also I say to you, whoever will confess me before men, him will the Son of Man also confess before the angels of Elohim, but he that denies me before men will be denied before the angels of Elohim. And whoever will speak a word against the Son of Man, it will be forgiven him, but to him that blasphemes against the sacred Spirit it will not be forgiven. And when they bring you to the synagogues, and to magistrates, and powers, take you no thought how or what thing you will answer, or what you will say, because the sacred Spirit will teach you in the same hour what you should say. And one from the crowd said to him, Teacher, speak to my brother, that he divide the inheritance with me. He replied to him, Man, who made me a judge or a divider over you? Then he said to them, Take heed, and beware of greedy desire, for a man's life consists not in the abundance of the things that he possesses. And he spoke a parable to them, saying, The ground of a certain rich man brought forth plentifully, and he thought within himself, saying, What will I do, because I have no room where to collect my fruits? He said, This will I do, I will pull down my barns, and build greater ones, and there I will collect all my fruits and my goods. And I will say to myself, Live, you have many goods laid up for many years, take your ease, eat, drink, and be merry. But Elohim said to him, Fool, this night your life will be required of you, then whose things will those be that you have provided? So is he that lays up treasure for himself, and is not rich toward Elohim. Then he said to his disciples, Therefore I say to you, take no thought for your life, what you will eat, neither for the body, what you will put on. The life is more than food, and the body is more than clothing. Consider the ravens, for they neither sow nor reap, that neither have storehouse nor barn, and Elohim feeds them. How much more are you better than the flying creatures? And which of you with taking thought can add to his stature 1 cubit? If you then are not able to do the thing that is least, why take thought for the rest? Consider the lilies how they grow, they toil not, they spin not, and still I say to you, that Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. If then Elohim so clothe the grass, that is today in the field, and tomorrow is cast into the oven, how much more will he clothe you, O you of little faith? And seek not what you will eat, or what you will drink, neither be of a doubtful mind. For all these things do the nations of the world seek after, and your Father knows that you have need of these things. But, rather seek the kingdom of Elohim, and all these things will be added to you. Fear not, little flock, because it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Sell what you have, and give donations, provide yourselves bags that wax not old, a treasure in the cosmos that fails not, where no thief approaches, neither moth does corrupt. Because where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Let your hips be girded about, and your lights burning, and you yourselves like to men that wait for their master, when he will return from the wedding feast, that when he comes and knocks, they may open to him immediately. Blessed are those slaves, who the master when he comes will find watching. Of a truth I say to you, that he will gird himself, and make them to sit down for food, and will come out and serve them. And if he will come in the 2nd watch, or come in the 3rd watch, and find them so, blessed are those slaves. And this know, that if the house master of the house had known what hour the thief would come, he would have watched, and not have permitted his house to be broken into. Be you accordingly ready also, because the Son of Man comes at an hour when you think not. Then Peter said to him, Lord, speak you this parable to us, or even to all? And the Lord replied, Who then is that faithful and wise steward, whom his master will make ruler over his household, to give them their portion of food in due season? Blessed is that slave, who his master when he comes will find so doing. Of a truth I say to you, that he will make him ruler over all that he has. But and if that slave says in his heart, My master delays his coming, and will begin to beat the male and female slaves, and to eat and drink, and to be drunken, the master of that slave will come in a day when he looks not for him, and at an hour when he is not aware of, and will cut him in pieces, and will appoint him his portion with the unbelievers. And that slave, that knew his master's will, and prepared not himself, neither did according to his will be beaten with many stripes. But he that did not know, and did commit things worthy of stripes, will be beaten with fewer stripes. Because to whoever much is given, of him will be much required, and to whom men have committed much, of him they will ask the more. I am come to send fire on the earth, and what will I, if it's already kindled? But I have a baptism to be baptized with, And how am I besieged until it is accomplished? Suppose you that I am come to give peace on earth? I tell you, no, but rather division, for from this time on there will be 5 in one house divided, 3 against 2, and 2 against 3. The dad will be divided against the son, and the son against the dad, the mother against the daughter, and the daughter against the mother-in-law against her daughter-in-law, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. Then he said also to the people, when you see a cloud mass rise out of the west, immediately you say, here comes a shower, and so it is. And when you see the south wind blowing, you say, there will be heat, and it comes to pass. You hypocrites, you can discern the face of the sky and of the earth, but how is it that you do not discern this time? Yes, and why even of yourselves judge you not what is right? When you go with your adversary to the magistrate, as you are in the way, give diligence that you may be delivered from him, unless he hale you to the judge, and the judge delivers you to the officer, and the officer casts you into prison. I tell you, you will not leave from there until you have paid the very last widow's mite. And there were present some at that time, telling him about the Galileans, whose blood Pilate did mingle with their sacrifices. But Jesus answering said to them, suppose you that these Galileans were sinners above all the Galileans, because they suffered such things? I tell you, no, but, except you have a change of mind, you will all likewise perish. Or those 18, upon which the tower in Siloam fell, and killed them, do you think that they were sinners above all men that lived in Jerusalem? I tell you, no, but, except you have a change of mind, you will all likewise perish. He spoke also this parable. A certain man had a fig tree planted in his vineyard, and he came and craved its fruit but found none. Then he said to the dresser of his vineyard, look, these 3 years I come seeking fruit on this fig tree, and find none, so cut it down. Why is it inactive in the ground? And he answering said to him, Master, leave it alone this year until I will dig around it and fertilize it. If it bears fruit, well, but if not, then after that you will cut it down. And he was teaching in one of the synagogues on the Sabbath. And lo, there was a woman that had a spirit of infirmity 18 years, and was bent over double, and could in no case lift herself up. And when Jesus saw her, he called her to him and said to her, Woman, you are freed from your infirmity. And he laid his hands on her, and immediately she was made straight, and glorified Elohim. And the ruler of the synagogue answered with indignation, because Jesus had healed on the Sabbath day, and said to the people, there are 6 days in which people should work, in them therefore come and be healed, but not on the Sabbath day. The Lord then answered him and said, You hypocrite, does not each one of you on the Sabbath untie their ox or their donkey from the stall, and lead it away to watering? And should not this woman, being a daughter of Abraham, who Satan has bound, lo, these 18 years, be untied from this bond on the Sabbath day? And when he had said these things, all his adversaries were ashamed, and all the people rejoiced for all the glorious things that were done by him. Then he said, To what is the kingdom of Elohim like? And what will I compare it to? It is like a grain of mustard seed that a man took, and threw into his garden, and it grew, becoming a great tree, and the flying creatures of the sky lodged in its branches. And again he said, With what will I compare the kingdom of Elohim? It is like leaven that a woman took and hid in 3 measures of meal, until the whole was leavened. Then he went through the cities and villages teaching, and journeying toward Jerusalem. Then said one to him, Lord, are there few that are saved? And he replied to them, Strive to enter in at the strait gate, for many, I say to you, will seek to enter in and will not be able. When once the master of the house has gotten up and has shut the door, and you begin to stand outside, and knock at the door saying, Lord, Lord, open to us, but he will answer and say to you, I know you not from where you are from. Then will you begin to say, We have eaten and drunk in your presence, and you have taught in our streets. But he will say, I tell you, I know you not, from where you come. Depart from me, all you workers of iniquity. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth, when you will see Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and all the prophets, in the kingdom of Elohim, and you yourselves thrust out. And they will come from the east, the west, the north, and from the south, and will sit down in the kingdom of Elohim. And look, there are last that will be first, and there are first that will be last. That same day there came some of the Pharisees saying to him, Get yourself out of here and leave now, because Herod will kill you. He replied to them, Go and tell that fox, Look, I cast out demons and I do healing today and tomorrow, and on the 3rd day I will be finished. Moreover I must walk today and tomorrow, and the next day, for it cannot be that a prophet perish out of Jerusalem. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, that kills the prophets, and stones them that are sent to you, how often would I have gathered your children together, as a bird does gather her brood under her wings, and you determined not to? Look, your house is left to you desolate, and of a truth I say to you, you will not see me until the time comes when you will say, Blessed is he that comes in the name of the Lord. And it came about, as he went into the house of one of the chief Pharisees to eat bread on the Sabbath day, that they watched him. And see, there was a certain man before him that had the dropsy. Then Jesus answering, spoke to the lawyers and Pharisees, saying, Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath day? And they held their peace. And he took him and healed him, and let him go, and answered them, saying, Which of you will have a donkey or an ox fallen into a pit, and will not immediately pull him out on the Sabbath day? And they could not answer him again to these things. Then he put forth a parable to those that were invited, when he observed how they selected out the chief rooms, saying to them, When you are invited of anyone to a wedding, do not sit down in the chief place at the table, unless a more honorable man than you is invited of him, and he that called you and him come and say to you, Give this man this place, and you with shame have to take the last seat. But when you are invited, go and sit down in the last room, that when he that invited you comes, he may say to you, Friend, move up closer, then will you have a good opinion in the presence of them that sit at dinner with you. For whoever exalts himself will be abased, and he that humbles himself will be exalted. Then he said also to him that invited him, When you make a dinner or a supper, do not call your friends, brothers, neither your kinsmen, nor your rich neighbors, unless they also invite you again, and a payback is made to you. But when you make a banquet, call the poor, the disabled, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed, for they cannot pay you back, because you will be paid back at the resurrection of the righteous. And when one of them that sat at dinner with him heard these things, he said to him, Blessed is he that will eat bread in the kingdom of Elohim. Then he replied to him, A certain man made a great supper, and invited many, and sent his slave at supper time to say to them that were invited, Come, for all things are now ready. And they all with one consent began to make excuses. The first said to him, I have bought a piece of land, and I must under the circumstances go and see to it. I ask you to have me excused. Then another said, I have bought 5 yoke of oxen, and I go to try them out. I ask you to have me excused. Another said, I have married a woman, and therefore I cannot come. So that slave came, and showed his master these things. Then the master of the house being angry said to his slave, Go out quickly into the streets and lanes of the city, and bring in here the poor, the disabled, the lame and the blind. Then the slave said, Master, it is done as you have commanded, and still there is room. And the master said to the slave, Go out into the highways and hedges, and compel them to come in, that my house may be filled. Because I say to you, that none of those men that were invited will taste of my supper. And there went large crowds with him, and he turned and said to them, If anyone comes to me, and hates not his father, mother, woman, children, brothers, and sisters, yes, and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple. And whoever does not bear his stake, and comes after me, cannot be my disciple. For which of you, intending to build a tower, does not sit down first and count the cost, whether he has sufficient to finish it? Otherwise, after he has laid the foundation, and is not able to finish it, all that see it begin to mock him, saying, This man began to build, and was not able to finish. Or what king, going to make war against another king, does not sit down first, and consults whether he be able with 10,000 to engage him that comes against him with 20,000? Or else, while the other is still a great ways off, he sends an ambassador, and desires the conditions of peace. So likewise, whoever he is of you that forsakes not all that he has, he cannot be my disciple. Salt is good, but if the salt has lost its flavor, how will it be used for seasoning? It is neither fit for the land, nor for the dunghill, but men cast it out. He that has ears to hear, let him hear. Then drew near to him all the tax collectors and sinners to hear him. And the Pharisees and scribes murmured, saying, This man receives sinners and eats with them. Then he spoke this parable to them, saying, What man of you having 100 sheep, if he loses one of them, does not leave the 99 in the wilderness, and go after what is lost, until he finds it? And when he has found it, he lays it on his shoulders, rejoicing. And when he comes home, he calls together his friends and neighbors, saying to them, Rejoice with me, because I have found my sheep that was lost. I say to you, that likewise there will be joy in the cosmos over one sinner that has a change of mind, more than over 99 righteous persons that need no change of mind. Either what woman having 10 pieces of silver, if she lose one piece, does not light a candle, and sweep the house, and looks diligently until she find it? And when she has found it, she calls her friends and her neighbors together, saying, Rejoice with me, because I have found the piece that I had lost. Likewise I say to you, there is joy in the presence of the angels of Elohim over one sinner that has a change of mind. Then he said, A certain man had 2 sons. And the younger of them said to his dad, Dad, give me my lot of goods that falls to me. And he divided to them his inherited goods. And not many days later the younger son gathered all together, and took his journey into a far country, and there wasted his estate with riotous living. And when he had spent everything, there arose a mighty famine in that land, and he began to be in need. And he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and he sent him into his fields to feed the swine. And he was desirous to fill his belly from the husks that the swine were eating, and no one was giving to him. And when he came to himself he said, How many hired slaves of my dad's have bread enough and extra, and here I perish with hunger. I will get up and go to my dad, and will say to him, Dad, I have sinned against the cosmos and before you, and am no more worthy to be called your son, make me as one of your hired slaves. And he got up and came to his dad. But when he was still a great ways off, his dad saw him and had compassion, and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. And the son said to him, Dad, I have sinned against the cosmos and in your sight, and am no more worthy to be called your son. But the dad replied to his slaves, Bring out the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand, and shoes on his feet. And bring here the fatted calf and slaughter it, and let us eat and rejoice. Because this my son was dead, and is alive again, he was lost and is found. And they began to rejoice. Now his elder son was in the field, and as he came and drew near to the house, he heard music and dancing. And he called one of the slaves and asked what was happening. Then he replied to him, Your brother has come, and your dad has slaughtered the fatted calf, because he has received him safe and sound. But he was angry, and would not go in, therefore his dad came out and called him. Then he answered to his dad saying, Lo, these many years I did serve you, neither transgressed I at any time your commandment, and still you never gave me a young goat, that I might rejoice with my friends, but as soon as this your son has come, that has devoured the living with prostitutes, you have slaughtered for him the fatted calf. And he replied to him, Son, you are always with me, and all that I have is yours. It was necessary that we should rejoice, and be happy, because this brother of yours was dead, and is alive again, and was lost, and is found. And he said also to his disciples, There was a certain rich man, that had a steward, and the same was accused to him that he had wasted his goods. Then he called him and said to him, How is it that I hear this of you? Give an account of your stewardship, because you may be no longer the steward. Then the steward said within himself, What will I do? Because my master takes away from me the stewardship, I cannot dig and to beg I am ashamed. I am resolved what to do, that, when I am put out of the stewardship, they may receive me into their houses. So he called every one of his master's debtors to him and said to the first, How much do you owe my master? And he replied, 100 measures of oil. Then he said to him, Take your bill and sit down quickly, and write 50. Then he said to another, And how do you owe? And he replied, 100 measures of wheat. Then he said to him, Take your bill, and write 80. And the master commended the unjust steward, because he had done wisely, because the children of this world are in their generation wiser than the children of light. And I say to you, make friends for yourselves by means of the riches of unrighteousness, that when it fails, they may receive you into the age-lasting tabernacle. He that is faithful in what is least is faithful also in much, and he that is unjust in the least is unjust also in much. If therefore you have not been faithful in the unrighteous riches, who will commit to your trust the true riches? And if you have not been faithful in what is another man's, who will give you what is your own? No slave can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one, and love the other, or else he will hold to the one, and despise the other. You cannot serve alone and riches. And the Pharisees also, who were money-loving, heard all these things, and they derided him. And he replied to them, You are they that justify yourselves before men, but Elohim knows your hearts, because what is highly esteemed among men is a detestable thing in the sight of Elohim. The law and the prophets were until John. Since that time the kingdom of Elohim is announcing good news, and everyone presses into it. And it is easier for the cosmos and earth to pass away, than one tittle of the law to fail. Whoever puts away his woman and marries another, commits adultery, and whoever marries her that is put away from her husband commits adultery. There was a certain rich man, Judah, that was clothed in purple and fine linen, and rejoiced sumptuously every day. And there was a certain beggar named Lazarus, Eliezer, that was laid at his gate, full of sores, and desiring to be fed with the crumbs that fell from the rich man's table. Moreover the dogs came and licked his sores. And it came to pass, that the beggar died, and was carried by the angels into Abraham's bosom. The rich man also died and was buried, and in Hades he lifted up his eyes, being in Hades after death, and, figuratively, sees Abraham afar off, and Lazarus in his bosom. Then he cried and said, Father Abraham, have mercy on me, and send Lazarus, that he may dip the tip of his finger in water, and cool my tongue, for I am pained in this flame. But Abraham replied, Son, remember that you in your lifetime received your good things, and likewise Lazarus bad things, but now he is comforted, and you are in pain. And besides all this, between us and you there is a great gulf fixed, Jordan Rift Valley, so that they that would pass from this place to you cannot, neither can they pass to us, that would come from that place. Then he said, I ask you therefore, Father, that you would send him to my father's house, for I have 5 brothers, that he may testify to them, unless they also come into this place of pain. Abraham replied to him, They have Moses and the prophets, let them hear them. Then he replied, No, Father Abraham, but if one went to them from the dead, they will have a change of mind. And he replied to him, If they hear not Moses and the prophets, neither will they be persuaded, though one rose from the dead. Then he said to the disciples, It is impossible but that offenses will come, but woe to him through whom they come. It were better for him that a millstone were hanged around his neck, and he cast into the sea, than that he should offend one of these little ones. Take heed to yourselves, if your brother trespass against you, rebuke him, and if he has a change of mind, forgive him. And if he trespass against you 7 times in a day, and 7 times in a day turn again to you, saying, I have a change of mind, you will forgive him. And the apostles said to the Lord, Add to our conviction of the truth. The Lord said, If you had faith as a grain of mustard seed, you might say to this sycamore tree, Be you plucked up by the root, and be you planted in the sea, and it should obey you. But which of you, having a slave plowing or feeding cattle, will say to him by and by, when he has come from the field, Go and sit down to recline and eat? And will not rather say to him, Make ready what I may sup, and gird yourself and serve me, until I have eaten and drunk, and afterward you will eat and drink? Does he thank that slave because he did the things that were commanded him? I think not. So likewise you, when you will have done all those things that are commanded you, say, We are unprofitable slaves, we have done what was our duty to do. And it came to pass as he went to Jerusalem, that he passed through the middle of Samaria and Galilee. And as he entered into a certain village, there met him 10 men that were lepers, that stood in the distance. And they lifted up their voices and said, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. And when he saw them, he said to them, Go show yourselves to the priests. And it came to pass that as they went, they were cleansed. And one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, and with a loud voice glorified Elohim, and fell down on his face at his feet giving him thanks, and he was a Samaritan. And Jesus answering said, Were there not 10 cleansed? But where are the 9? Was no one found that returned to give glory to Elohim, except this foreigner? And he replied to him, Get up, go your way, your faith has made you whole. And when he was demanded of the Pharisees, when the kingdom of Elohim should come, he answered them and said, The kingdom of Elohim comes not with observation, neither will they say, Lo here, or, Lo there. For behold, the kingdom of Elohim is inside you. And he said to the disciples, The days will come, when you will desire to see one of the days of the Son of Man, and you will not see it. And they will say to you, See here, or see there, go not after them nor follow them. For as the lightning, that lightens out of the one part under the skies, shines to the other part under the skies, so will also the Son of Man be in his day. But first he must suffer many things, and be rejected of this generation. And as it was in the days of Noah, so will it also be in the days of the Son of Man. They did eat, they drank, they married women, they were given in marriage, until the day that Noah entered into the ark vessel, and the flood came and destroyed them all. Likewise also as it was in the days of Lot, they did eat, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they constructed, but the same day that Lot went out of Sodom it rained fire and brimstone from the skies, and destroyed them all. Even so will it be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed. In that day, he that will be upon the housetop, and his stuff in the house, let him not come down to take it away, and he that is in the field, let him likewise not return back. Remember Lot's woman. Whoever will seek to save his life will lose it, and whoever will lose his life will preserve it. I tell you, in that night there will be 2 men in one bed, the one will be taken, and the other will be left. 2 women will be grinding together, the one will be taken, and the other left. 2 men will be in the field, the one will be taken, and the other left. And they answered and said to him, Where, Lord? And he replied to them, Wherever the body is, there will the eagles be gathered together. Then he spoke a parable to them to this end, that men should always pray and not lose heart, saying, There was in a city a judge that feared not Elohim, neither regarded man, and there was a widow in that city, and she came to him saying, Avenge me of my adversary. And he would not for a while, but afterward he said within himself, Though I fear not Elohim nor regard man, yet because this widow troubles me, I will avenge her, unless by her continual coming she tires me. And the Lord said, Hear what the unjust judge says. And will not Elohim avenge his own elect, that cry day and night to him, though he bears long with them? I tell you that he will avenge them speedily. Moreover, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on the earth? Then he spoke this parable to some that trusted in themselves that they were righteous, and despised others. 2 men went up into the temple to pray, the one a Pharisee, and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself, Elohim, I thank you, that I am not as other men are, extortionists, unjust, adulterers, or even as this tax collector. I fast twice in the week, I give tithes of all that I possess. And the tax collector, standing in the distance, would not lift up so much as his eyes to the cosmos, but smote upon his breast saying, Elohim, be merciful to me a sinner. I tell you, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other, for everyone that exalts himself will be abased, and he that humbles himself will be exalted. And they brought to him also infants, that he would touch them, but when his disciples saw it, they rebuked them. But Jesus called them to him and said, Permit little children to come to me, and forbid them not, for of such is the kingdom of Elohim. Of a truth I say to you, whoever will not receive the kingdom of Elohim as a little child will by no means enter therein. And a certain ruler asked him saying, Good teacher, what will I do to inherit age-lasting life? Jesus replied to him, Why do you call me good? None are good, except one, that is Elohim. You know the commandments, do not commit adultery, do not murder, do not steal, do not bear false witness, honor your dad and mother. And he replied, All these have I observed from my youth up. Now when Jesus heard these things, he said to him, Still you lack one thing, sell all that you have and distribute to the poor, and you will have treasure in the cosmos, and come, follow me. And when he heard this, he was very sorrowful because he was very rich. Then when Jesus saw that he was very sorrowful, he said, How hardly will they that have riches enter into the kingdom of Elohim? For it is easier for a camel to go through a needle's eye, than for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of Elohim. And they that heard it said, Who then can be saved? He replied, The things that are impossible with men are possible with Elohim. Then Peter said, Lo, we have left all and followed you. He replied to them, Of a truth I say to you, there is no man that has left house, parents, brother or woman, or children, for the kingdom of Elohim's sake, who will not receive manifold more in this present time, and in the world to come life age-lasting. Then he took to himself the 12, and said to them, Look, we go up to Jerusalem, and all things that are written by the prophets concerning the Son of Man will be accomplished. Because he will be delivered to the Gentiles, and will be mocked and outrageously treated, and spitted on, and they will scourge him and put him to death, and the third day he will rise again. But they understood none of these things, and this saying was hidden from them, neither perceived they the things that were spoken. And it came about, that as he was come near to Jericho, a certain blind man sat by the wayside begging, and hearing the crowds pass by, he asked what it meant. They told him that Jesus of Nazareth passed by. Then he cried saying, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. And they that went before rebuked him, that he should hold his peace, but he cried so much the more, Son of David, have mercy on me. Then Jesus stood and commanded him to be brought to him, and when he was come near, he asked him saying, What would you have me do for you? And he replied, Lord, that I might receive my sight. Jesus said to him, Receive your sight, your faith has saved you. And instantly he received his sight, and followed him, glorifying Elohim, and all the people when they saw it, gave praise to Elohim. Then Jesus entered and passed through Jericho. And look, there was a man named Zacchaeus, that was the chief among the tax collectors, and he was rich. And he sought to see Jesus who he was, but could not because of the crowd, because he was little of stature. So he ran before, and climbed up into a sycamore tree to see him because he was to pass that way. And when Jesus came to the place, he looked up and saw him, and said to him, Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for today I must stay at your house. And he hurried and came down, and received him joyfully. And when they saw it, they all murmured saying, that he was gone to be guest with a man that is a sinner. Then Zacchaeus stood and said to the Lord, See, Lord, the half of my goods I give to the poor, and if I have taken anything from anyone by false accusation, I restore to him fourfold. Jesus replied to him, This day is salvation come to this house, because that he also is a son of Abraham. Because the Son of Man has come to seek and to save what was lost. And as they heard these things, he added and spoke a parable, because he was near to Jerusalem, and because they thought that the kingdom of Elohim should immediately appear. He said therefore, A certain nobleman went into a far country to receive for himself a kingdom, and to return. And he called his 10 slaves, and delivered them 10 pounds, 3 months' wages, and said to them, Occupy until I come. But his citizens hated him, and sent a message after him saying, We will not have this man to reign over us. And it came about that when he was returned, having received the kingdom, then he commanded these slaves to be called to him, to whom he had given the money, that he might know how much everyone had gained by trading. Then came the first saying, Lord, your pound has gained 10 pounds. He replied to him, Well, you good slave, because you have been faithful in a very little, have you authority over 10 cities. And the second came saying, Lord, your pound has gained 5 pounds. He replied likewise to him, Be you also over 5 cities. Then another came saying, Lord, look, here is your pound, that I have kept laid up in a napkin. Because I was afraid of you, because you are an austere man, you take up what you did not lay down, and reap what you did not sow. He replied to him, Out of your own mouth will I judge you, you bad slave. You knew that I was an austere man, taking up that I laid not down, and reaping that I did not sow. And why did you not give my money to the bank, and I, having come, with interest might have received it? Then he said to them that stood by, Take from him the pound and give it to him that is 10 pounds. But they said to him, Lord, he has 10 pounds. For I say to you, that to every one that has will be given, and from him that has not, even what he has will be taken away from him. But those of my enemies that would not that I should reign over them bring here, and slay them before me. And when he had thus spoken, he walked and went up to Jerusalem. And it came about when he was come near to Bethphage and Bethany, at the mount called the Mount of Olives, he sent 2 of his disciples saying, Go into the village opposite you, where at your entering you will find a colt tied, which never a man has yet sat on, untie him and bring him here. And if anyone asks you, Why do you untie him? Then you will say to him, Because the Lord has need of him. And they that were sent went their way, found the colt even as he had said to them. Then as they were untying the colt, the owners said to them, Why untie the colt? And they replied, The Lord has need of him. And they brought it to Jesus, and they cast their garments upon the colt, and they set Jesus on it. Then as he went, they spread their clothes in the roadway. And when he was come near, at the descent of the Mount of Olives, the whole crowd of the disciples began to rejoice and praise alone with a loud voice for all the mighty works that they had seen, saying, Blessed is the King that comes in the name of the Lord, peace in the cosmos, and glory in the Most High. And some of the Pharisees from among the crowd said to him, Teacher, rebuke your disciples. But he answered and said to them, I tell you that, if these should hold their peace, the stone, Urim Thummim, would immediately cry out. And when he was come near, he observed the city and wept over it, saying, If you had known in this day, even you, the things that make for peace. But now they have been concealed from your eyes. Because the days will come upon you, that your enemies will cast a rampart around you, and encircle you, and besiege you on every side. And will lay you even with the ground, and your children within you, and they will not leave in you one stone upon another, because you knew not the time of your visitation. And he went into the temple, and began to cast out them that sold there, and them that purchased, saying to them, It is written, My house is the house of prayer, but you have made it a den of thieves. Then he taught daily in the temple. But the chief priests and the scribes and the chief of the people sought to destroy him, but could not find what they might do, for all the people were very attentive to hear him. And it came about, that on one of those days as he taught the people in the temple, and announced the good news, the chief priests and the scribes came to him with the elders, and spoke to him saying, Tell us, by what authority do you these things? Or who is he that gave you this authority? And he answered and said to them, I will also ask you one thing, and answer me, the baptism of John, was it from the cosmos, or of men? Then they reasoned with themselves, saying, If we will say, from the cosmos, he will say, Why then did you not believe him? But if we say, of men, all the people will stone us because they are persuaded that John was a prophet. Then they answered, that they could not tell from where it was. Jesus replied to them, Neither will I tell you by what authority I do these things. Then began he to speak to the people this parable. A certain man planted a vineyard, and hired it out to vine dressers, and went into a far country for a long time. Then at the season he sent a slave to the vine dressers, that they should give him of the fruit of the vineyard, but the vine dressers beat him, and sent him away empty. And again he sent another slave, and they beat him too, and treated him shamefully, and sent him away empty. And again he sent a third, and they wounded him also, and cast him out. Then said the master of the vineyard, What will I do? I will send my esteemed son, it may be they will honor him when they see him. But when the vine dressers saw him, they reasoned among themselves, saying, This is the heir, come, let us kill him so that the inheritance may be ours. So they cast him out of the vineyard and killed him. What therefore will the master of the vineyard do to them? He will come and destroy these vine dressers, and will give the vineyard to others. And when they heard it they said, Elohim forbid. Then he observed them and said, What is this then that is written, the stone, Urim Thummim, that the restorers rejected? The same appears in history as the head of the secret place, internal corner, breastplate of the high priest? Whoever will fall upon that, Urim Thummim, stone will be shattered, but on whoever it will fall, it will grind him to powder. And the chief priests and the scribes the same hour sought to lay hands on him, but they feared the people because they perceived that he had spoken this parable against them. And they watched him and sent out spies, that should feign themselves as righteous men, so that they might take hold of his words, attempting to deliver him to the power and authority of the governor. Then they asked him, saying, Teacher, we know that you say and teach rightly, neither accept you the person of anyone, but teach the way of Elohim truly. Is it lawful for us to give tribute to Caesar or not? But he perceived their craftiness and replied to them, Why do you test me? Show me a denarius. Whose image and superscription is on it? They answered and said, Caesar's. Then he replied to them, Render therefore to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to Elohim the things that are Elohim's. And they could not take hold of his words before the people, and they marveled at his answer, and held their peace. Then there came to him some of the Sadducees, that deny that there is any resurrection, and they asked him saying, Teacher, Moses wrote to us, If any man's brother dies, having a woman, and he dies without children, that his brother should take his woman, and raise up seed for his brother. There were therefore 7 brothers, and the first took a woman, and died without children. And the second took her to be his woman, but he died childless. Then the third took her, and in like manner the 7 also, and they left no children, and died. Last of all the woman died also. Therefore in the resurrection whose woman of them is she, since the 7 had her as their woman? Then Jesus answering said to them, The children of this world marry and are given in marriage, but they that will be accounted worthy to obtain those ages, and the resurrection from the dead, neither marry, nor are given in marriage, neither can they die any more, because they are equal to the angels, and are the children of Elohim, being the children of the resurrection. Now that the dead are raised, even Moses showed at the bush, when he called the Lord the Elohim of Abraham, and the Elohim of Isaac, and the Elohim of Jacob. Because he is not an Elohim of the dead, but of the living, because all live to him. Then some of the scribes answering said, Teacher, you have spoken well. And after that they did not ask him any more questions at all. Then he said to them, How do they say the Christ to be David's son? And David himself said in the scroll of Psalms, The Lord said to my Lord, Sit you on my right hand, until I make your enemies your footstool. David therefore called him Lord. How is he then his son? Then in the audience of all the people he said to his disciples, Beware of the scribes, that desire to walk in long robes, and love greetings in the markets, and the highest seats in the synagogues, and the chief rooms at festivals, that devour widows' houses, and for a show make long prayers, the same will receive greater judgment. Then he looked up, and saw the rich men casting their gifts into the treasury. And he saw also a certain poor widow casting in her 2 mites, small brass coin worth 1/5 of a cent. And he said, Of a truth I say to you, that this poor widow has cast in more than they all, for all these have from their abundance cast into the offerings of Elohim, but she of her poverty has cast in all the living that she had. And as some spoke of the temple, how it was adorned with beautiful stones and consecrated gifts, he said, As for these things that you see, the days will come, in which there will not be left one stone upon another, that will not be thrown down. Then they asked him saying, Teacher, but when will these things be? And what sign will there be when these things will come to pass? He replied, Take heed that you are not deceived, for many will come in my name saying, I am Christ, and the time draws near. Do not go after them. But when you will hear of wars and instability, be not terrified, because these things must first come to pass, but the end is not by and by. Then he said to them, Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and great earthquakes in every place, and famines, plagues and fearful sights, and great signs will there be from the cosmos. But before all these, they will lay their hands on you, and persecute you, delivering you up to the synagogues, and into prisons, being brought before kings and rulers for my name's sake. And it will turn to you for a testimony. Settle it therefore in your hearts, not to meditate before what you will answer, because I will give you a mouth and wisdom, Sophia, that all your adversaries will not be able to gainsay nor resist. And you will be betrayed both by parents, brothers, relatives, and friends, and some of you will they cause to be put to death. And you will be hated of all men for my name's sake. But there will not a hair of your head perish. In your patience possess you your lives. And, when you will see Jerusalem encircled with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is near. Then let them that are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them that are in the middle of it depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter into it. For these are the days of vengeance, that all things that are written may be fulfilled. But woe to them that are pregnant, and to them that give suckle in those days. Because there will be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people. And they will fall by the edge of the sword, and will be led away captive into all nations, and Jerusalem will be trampled down of the Gentiles, until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. And there will be signs in the sun, moon, and in the constellations, and upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them for fear, and for looking after those things that are coming on the earth, for the powers of the cosmos will be shaken. And then will they see the Son of Man coming in a cloud mass with power and great glory. Now when these things begin to come to pass, then look up, and lift up your heads, because your ransom draws near. Then he spoke to them a parable, Behold the fig tree, and all the trees, when they now shoot forth, you see and know by your own selves that summer is now near at hand. So likewise you, when you see these things come about, know that the kingdom of Elohim is near at hand. Of a truth I say to you, this generation will not pass away, until all is fulfilled. The cosmos and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. And take heed to yourselves, unless at any time your hearts are overcharged with excess wine, and drunkenness, and the cares of this life, and so that day comes upon you unexpected. Because as a snare will it come on all them that live on the face of the whole earth. Watch you therefore and pray always, that you may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that will come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man. And in the daytime he was teaching in the temple, and at night he went out and stayed in the mount that is called the Mount of Olives. And all the people came early in the morning to him in the temple to hear him. Now the festival of unleavened bread drew near, that is called the Passover. And the chief priests and scribes sought how they might kill him, because they feared the people. Then entered Satan into Judas surnamed Iscariot, being of the number of the 12. And he went his way and communed with the chief priests and captains, how he might betray him to them. And they were glad and covenanted to give him money. And he promised, and sought opportunity to betray him to them in the absence of the crowds. Then came the day of unleavened bread, when the Passover must be killed. And he sent Peter and John, saying, Go and prepare us the Passover, that we may eat. And they said to him, Where will you have us prepare it? He replied to them, See, when you are entered into the city, there will be a man to meet you, bearing a pitcher of water. Follow him into the house where he enters in. And you will say to the master of the house, The teacher says to you, Where is the guest chamber, where I will eat the Passover with my disciples? And he will show you a large upper room furnished, there make ready. And they went, and found as he had said to them, and they made ready the Passover. And when the hour was come, he sat down, and the 12 apostles with him. Then he said to them, With desire I have desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer. Because I say to you, I will not any more eat thereof, until it is fulfilled in the kingdom of Elohim. And he took the cup and gave thanks and said, Take this, and divide it among yourselves, because I say to you, I will not drink from the fruit of the vine, until the kingdom of Elohim will come. Then he took bread and gave thanks and broke it and gave to them, saying, This is my body that is given for you, this do in remembrance of me. Likewise also the cup after supper, saying, This cup is the New Testament in my blood, that is shed for you. But look, the hand of him that betrays me is with me on the table. And truly the Son of Man goes, as it was determined, but woe to that man by whom he is betrayed. And they began to inquire among themselves, which of them it was that should do this thing. And there was also a contention among them, which of them should be accounted the greatest. Then he said to them, The kings of the Gentiles exercise lordship over them, and they that exercise authority upon them are called benefactors. But you will not be so, but he that is greatest among you, let him be as the younger, and he that is chief, as he that does serve. For which is greater, he that sits at dinner or he that serves? Is not he that sits at dinner? But I am among you as he that serves. You are they that have continued with me in my trials. And I appoint to you a kingdom, as my Father has appointed to me, that you may eat and drink at my table in my kingdom, and sit on thrones judging the 12 tribes of Israel. And the Lord said, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan has desired to have you so that he may sift you as wheat, but I have prayed for you, that your faith fails not, and when you are converted, strengthen your brethren. And he replied to him, Lord, I am ready to go with you, both into prison, and to death. But he replied, I tell you, Peter, the rooster will not crow this day, before that you will deny me 3 times that you know me. Then he said to them, When I sent you without purse, wallet, and shoes, did you lack anything? And they replied, Nothing. Then he said to them, But now, he that has a purse, let him take it, and likewise his wallet, and he that has no sword, let him sell his garment and buy one. Because I say to you, this that is written must still be accomplished in me. And he was reckoned among the transgressors, for the things concerning me have an end. And they said, Lord, look, here are 2 swords. And he replied to them, It is enough. And he came out, and went as he was accustomed, to the Mount of Olives, and his disciples also followed him. And when he was at the place he said to them, Pray that you enter not into trials. And he was withdrawn from them about a stone's cast, and kneeled down and prayed, saying, Father, if you are willing, remove this cup from me, nevertheless not my will, but yours be done. And there appeared an angel to him from the cosmos, strengthening him. And being in an agony he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat was as it were great drops of blood falling down to the ground. And when he got up from prayer and was come to his disciples, he found them sleeping for sorrow, and said to them, Why do you sleep? Get up and pray, unless you enter into trial. And while he still spoke, look, a crowd, And he that was called Judas, one of the 12, went before them and drew near to Jesus to kiss him. But Jesus said to him, Judas, you betray the Son of Man with a kiss? When they that were around him saw what would follow, they said to him, Lord, will we smite with the sword? And one of them struck the slave of the high priest and cut off his right ear. But Jesus answered and said, Permit this to happen. And he touched his ear, and healed him. Then Jesus said to the chief priests and captains of the temple, and the elders that were come to him, Are you come out, as against a thief, with swords and cudgels? When I was daily with you in the temple, you stretched out no hands against me, but this is your hour and the power of darkness. Then they took him and led him and brought him into the high priest's palace. And Peter followed from a distance. And when they had kindled a fire in the center of the hall and were set down together, Peter sat down among them. But a certain maid looked at him as he sat by the fire, and gazed at him and said, This man was also with him. But he denied him, saying, Woman, I know him not. And after a little while another saw him and said, You are also of them. But Peter said, Man, I am not. Then about the space of 1 hour after another confidently affirmed, saying, Of a truth this man also was with him, because he is a Galilean. And Peter replied, Man, I know not what you are saying. Then instantly, while he still spoke, the cock crew. And the Lord turned and looked upon Peter. Then Peter remembered the word of the Lord, how he had said to him, Before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times. Then Peter went out and wept bitterly. And the men that held Jesus mocked him and beat him. And when they had blindfolded him, they struck him on the face and asked him, saying, Prophesy, who is it that hit you? And many other things blasphemously they spoke against him. And as soon as it was day, the elders of the people and the chief priests and the scribes came together, and led him into their council, saying, Are you the Christ? Tell us. And he said to them, If I tell you, you will not believe, and if I also ask you, you will not answer me, nor let me go. Hereafter will the Son of Man sit on the right hand of the power of Elohim. Then they all asked, Are you then the son of Elohim? And he replied to them, You say that I am. And they replied, What need we of any further witness? Because we ourselves have heard from his own mouth. Then the whole group of them got up and led him to Pilate. And they began to accuse him, saying, We found this man perverting the nation and forbidding to give tribute to Caesar, saying that he himself is Christ a king. Then Pilate asked him, saying, Are you the king of the Jews? And he answered him and said, You say it. Then replied Pilate to the chief priests and to the people, I find no fault in this man. And they were the more angry, saying, He stirs up the people, teaching throughout all Judea, beginning from Galilee to this place. When Pilate heard of Galilee, he asked whether the man was a Galilean. And as soon as he learned that he belonged to Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him to Herod, who himself was also at Jerusalem at that time. And when Herod saw Jesus, he was greatly happy, because he had been desirous to see him for a long time, because he had heard many things of him, and he hoped to have seen some miracle done by him. Then he questioned with him in many words, but he answered him nothing. And the chief priests and scribes stood and vehemently accused him. Then Herod with his men of war treated him with contempt and mocked him, and arrayed him in a splendid robe, and sent him again to Pilate. And the same day both Pilate and Herod became friends, because formerly they hated each other. And Pilate, when he had called together the chief priests and the rulers and the people, said to them, You have brought this man to me as one that perverts the people, and behold, I, having examined him before you, have found no fault in this man touching those things of which you accuse him, no, nor yet Herod, because I sent you to him, and, lo, nothing worthy of death is done by him. I will therefore correct him and release him. Because of necessity he must release one to them at the festival. But they cried out all at once, saying, Away with this man, and release to us Barabbas, who for a certain sedition made in the city, and for murder was cast into prison. Pilate therefore, willing to release Jesus, spoke again to them. But they cried, saying, Crucify him! Crucify him! Then he said to them the third time, Why, what bad has he done? I have found no cause of death in him, I will therefore correct him and let him go. But they were urgent with loud voices, requiring that he might be crucified. And the voices of them and of the chief priests prevailed. Then Pilate gave sentence that it should be as they required. And he released to them him that for sedition and murder was thrown into prison, who they had desired, but he delivered Jesus to their purpose. And as they led him away they laid hold upon one Simon, a Cyrenian, coming out of the country, and on him they laid the stake, that he might carry it after Jesus. And there followed him a great company of people and of women, that also bewailed and mourned for him. But Jesus turning to them said, Daughters of Jerusalem, weep not for me, but weep for yourselves, and for your children. For lo, the days are coming in which they will say, Blessed are the barren, and the wombs that never gender, and the breasts that never are suckled. Then will they begin to say to the mountains, Fall on us, and to the hills, Cover us. Because if they do these things in a green tree, what will be done in the dry? And there were also 2 other evildoers, led with him to be put to death. And when they were come to the place that is called the Skull, there they crucified him and the evildoers, one on the right hand, and the other on the left. Then Jesus said, Father, forgive them because they know not what they do. And they parted his garments and cast lots, and the people stood observing. And the rulers also with them derided him, saying, He saved others, so let him save himself, if he is Christ, the chosen of Elohim. The soldiers also mocked him, coming to him and offering him vinegar and saying, If you are the King of the Jews, save yourself. And a superscription also was written over him in letters of Greek, and Latin, and Hebrew, This is the King of the Jews. Then one of the evildoers that were hanged reviled him, saying, If you are Christ, save yourself and us. But the other answering rebuked him, saying, Do you not fear Elohim, seeing you are in the same condemnation? And we indeed justly, because we receive the due reward of our deeds, but this man has done nothing wrong. Then he said to Jesus, Lord, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And Jesus replied to him, Of a truth I say to you, this day, you will be with me in paradise. And it was about the 6th hour, and there was a darkness over all the land until the 9th hour. And the sun was darkened, and the veil of the temple was torn down its center. And when Jesus had cried with a loud voice, he said, Father, into your hands I commend my breath. And having said this, he breathed out his last breath. Now when the centurion saw what was done, he glorified Elohim, saying, Certainly this was a righteous man. And all the people that came together to that sight, observing the things that were done, beat their breasts and returned. And all his acquaintances, and the women that followed him from Galilee, stood in the distance, observing these things. And note, there was a man named Joseph, a counselor, and he was a righteous man. The same had not consented to the counsel and deeds of them. He was from Arimathea, a city of the Jews, who also himself waited for the kingdom of Elohim. This man went to Pilate and requested the body of Jesus. And he took it down and wrapped it in linen, and laid it in a tomb that was cut in stone, where no man had been laid before. And that day was the preparation, and the Sabbath began to dawn. And the women also that came with him from Galilee, followed after and observed the tomb and how his body was laid. And they returned, and prepared spices and ointments, and rested on the Sabbath day according to the commandment. Now upon the 1st day of the week, very early in the morning they came to the tomb, bringing the spices that they had prepared, and some others with them. And they found the stone rolled away from the tomb. Then they entered in, and did not find the body of the Lord Jesus. And it came about, as they were very perplexed about this, lo, 2 males stood by them in dazzling garments, and as they were terrified, and bowed down their faces to the ground, they said to them, Why do you seek the living among the dead? He is not here, but is resurrected. Remember how he spoke to you when he was still in Galilee, saying, The Son of Man must be delivered into the hands of sinful men, and be crucified, and on the 3rd day rise again. Then they remembered his words, and returned from the tomb, and told all these things to the 11, and to all the rest. It was Mary Magdalene, and Joanna, and Mary, the mother of James, and other women that were with them that told these things to the apostles. But their words seemed to them as idle tales, and they did not believe them. Then Peter got up, and ran to the tomb, and stooping down, he saw the linen clothes laid by themselves, and left wondering in himself at the thing that had happened. And behold, 2 of them went that same day to a village called Emmaus, that was from Jerusalem about 7 miles. And they talked together of all these things that had happened. And it came about that while they talked together and reasoned, Jesus himself drew near and went with them. But their eyes were restrained so that they should not know him. Then he said to them, What kind of talk is this that you have one with another, so that as you walk, and are sad? And one of them, whose name was Cleopas, answering said to him, Are you only a stranger in Jerusalem, and have not known the things that are come to pass there in these days? Then he replied to them, What things? And they said to him, Concerning Jesus of Nazareth, that was a prophet mighty in deed and word before Elohim and all the people, and how the chief priests and our rulers delivered him to be condemned to death, and have crucified him. But we trusted that it had been he that should have ransomed Israel, and besides all this, today is the 3rd day since these things were done. Yes, and some women also from our company made us astonished, that were early at the tomb, and when they did not find his body, they came saying that they had also seen a vision of angels that said that he was alive. Then some of them that were with us went to the tomb, and found it even so as the women had said, but him they did not see. Then he said to them, O unwise, and slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have spoken, should not Christ to have suffered these things, and to enter into his glory? Then beginning at Moses and all the prophets, he expounded to them in all the scriptures the things concerning himself. And as they drew near to the village, where they went, and he made as though he would have gone further. But they compelled him, saying, Stay with us, because it is toward evening, and the day is far spent. So he went in to stay with them. And it came about, as he sat at dinner with them, he took bread and blessed it and broke and gave to them. And their eyes were opened, and they knew him, but he then arose out of their sight. Then they said to one another, Did not our heart burn within us while he talked with us by the way, and while he opened to us the Scriptures? And they got up the same hour and returned to Jerusalem, and found the 11 gathered together, and them that were with them, saying, The Lord is resurrected indeed and has appeared to Simon. And they told what things were done in the way, and how he was known of them in breaking of bread. And as they were speaking, Jesus himself stood in the middle of them and said to them, Peace be to you. But they were terrified and affrighted, and supposed that they had seen a spirit. Then he said to them, Why are you troubled? And why do thoughts arise in your hearts? Behold my hands and my feet, that it is I myself, handle me and see, because a spirit has not flesh and bones, as you see me to have. And when he had so spoken, he showed them his hands and his feet. And while they still believed not for joy and wondered, he said to them, Have you here any eatable food? So they gave him a piece of a broiled fish, and of an honeycomb. Then he took it and did eat before them. And he said to them, These are the words that I spoke to you, while I was still with you, that all things must be fulfilled that were written in the Torah of Moses, and in the prophets, and in the Psalms, concerning me. Then he opened their understanding, that they might understand the Scriptures, then said to them, Thus it is written, and so it was necessary for Christ to suffer, and to rise from the dead on the third day. And that a change of mind and a pardoning of sins should be heralded in his name among all nations, beginning at Jerusalem. And you are witnesses of these things. Now behold, I send the promise of my Father upon you, but stay yourselves in the city of Jerusalem, until you are endued with power from on high. Then he led them out as far as to Bethany, and he lifted up his hands, and blessed them. And it came about, while he blessed them, he was parted from them, and carried up into the skies. Then they worshipped him, and returned to Jerusalem with great joy. And were constantly in the sacred place, praising and blessing alone. Amen.